Hello and welcome to this Spark training. So we have planned a few of these to do live. So feel free to jump on and see our upcoming schedule to see when we might be doing these live if you're interested in that. But if you want to just take a look at what we've got here, feel free to stick around. And what we plan to cover today is sort of a basics of Spark. Covering off on the basic features and functionality, but also we're going to cover a little bit of background on generative AI, and sort of what it's up to these days, where it's at, and also just some best practices. So with that, I'm just going to go ahead and jump in. So probably helpful for you to get to know me just a little bit before we get too far in here. So my name is TJ Lewis. I am an innovation strategist with the RightWorks Labs team. Have been for nearly a year and a half at this point. And most of the last year has been focused on this product, Spark. And so when ChatGPT came out in November of 2022, we started looking at it. We were intrigued by it. Like many other people, we were trying to figure out what is this new thing and what are its capabilities. And so after playing around with that for a little bit, exploring, we were given access to the API and started building some basic tools and functionality just to test it out. And we've kind of grown from there. So as the slide says, I've been on product teams serving accountants since about 2015. Have been focused on AI for the last 12 months, and I spend most of my time really interacting with our users, trying to either do interviews or really just understand what it is that users are trying to accomplish with it, or the struggling moments that they have throughout their day, the pain points that they're facing, and how we can use our tool to solve for those. So that's been my last several months of work, and I hope that those of you that are using Spark are finding value in that. And I'm the guy to come to if there's anything I can do for you. So, quick background on generative AI. So, generative AI is sort of an evolution from what we've heard AI for since the 50s, really, right? Artificial intelligence and computing and all of those things, and really just trying to figure out how can we more closely approximate human intelligence in an artificial way. And so this new version really is mostly about just the huge consumption and ingestion of our language, right, in all of its various forms, in written content, etc. And so what they've done is they've taken all of this information. They've put it into a model called the GPT, Generative Pre-trained Transformer. That's sort of the new iteration here that ChatGPT has made popular, and it's trained on those billions of parameters. And really, what it is doing is taking all of that and trying to figure out how words, thoughts, and concepts go together in a way that when we ask a question or give it a prompt, it can come back with an answer based on all of that information. And it's really that information at scale that allows it to do this really well. And so essentially, everybody's familiar with sort of the predictive text. We've had that for a long time now, right? In your emails and in your text. This is basically what that's doing, just on a massive scale with a ton of information. So when you give it an input, it processes that input and then responds. And essentially what it's doing is predicting the next word. So that's like the very scaled down version of what this is doing. And it's able to do that very quickly and very accurately in most cases, which we'll talk about. So that's sort of the basics of generative AI. I don't want to get too deep in the weeds there. There's plenty of other areas that maybe we can go into in future webinars or trainings, and there's other areas on YouTube if you want to explore that further. As we talk about using this tool and this functionality, a couple things to keep in mind. One, there are definitely some considerations of best practices. I think it's really good if your firm has an AI policy. If they don't, we have some guidance on that within our training and our community platform here, which I'll show you later. We have some guidance on implementation and creation of an AI policy. But if you do have one, definitely take a look at that and understand sort of what's inbounds, out of bounds as far as AI usage for your firm. Two things that I want to cover on because they're pretty widely accepted across the board. So these are likely in your AI policy, but just to cover these, really want to be aware of the data that you're inputting into these tools, Spark included. Now, you do want to limit and remove sensitive data. So whether that's company, intellectual property, that's client information, personal identifying information, those kinds of things. You really don't need that information in most cases to get the answer that you're after. So we recommend just extract that, remove that, redact that from your prompts so that it does not get submitted into the model. Now, point of clarity from our perspective, that data is and should be safe when going to the model. And by safe, I mean it's not going to get pulled into the large language model and be at risk of coming out in someone else's answer down the road. But that said, we are grooving good habits right now as we learn and try to understand what this technology is capable of. And so, as we're grooving those good habits, just because Spark handles your information in a certain way does not mean that if you go to another tool and enter that information, that it's going to be handled with the same type of care and the same understanding. So best practice there is to just limit or remove any sensitive data and beware of the data that you're sending into your prompts. Second thing here is to verify and validate your responses. So it is very accurate. A lot of the time, it gives you exactly what you need. But if you are sending information, if you ask it a question and it gives you an answer and you're sending that on to someone else, you are, at the end of the day, you are the one liable for any incorrect information that ends up in their hands coming from you, right? It's not the AI's fault if you send it wrong information. So, and there's nobody to hold accountable if something goes wrong. So, verify and validate the responses. The models can provide incorrect information. It is possible for them to provide incorrect information. You will notice, we'll get into this in a minute, and the knowledge cutoff date for our model, we're using OpenAI's model. The knowledge cutoff is April of 2023, which just means that no information past, that's current as of February 2024. That's the current information that we have. So knowledge cutoff is April of 2023, which means that no information developed, created, published past that date will be included in the information that can be used in responses. So that's just something to be aware of. So again, verify and validate that information is correct, because it may be outdated if you're asking something that's time sensitive. Okay, so what is Spark? So I just mentioned we're built on top of OpenAI's large language model. We are using the latest model, which as of right now is GPT-4 Turbo. And I can get into more specs on that, but I won't because it's just a lot of numbers and letters. So GPT-4 Turbo is the most recent, and it is widely considered the most powerful and most highest performing model, though other options from Google and others are making strides. GPT-4 Turbo is still widely considered to be the most effective. So Spark, why use Spark versus using Google's Gemini or going to Bing Chat or using Anthropic's Claude or others? The big thing that we believe that we're building here is a purpose-built AI tool that's built really for accounting, right? To meet you where you are with the needs that you have. And so any of the tools and features that we build into this are really to try and help you get better results at a more targeted within your workflows and within your processes. And so we're going to continue building those kinds of tools and functionality that meet you where you are in your day to day. And then, as I mentioned a minute ago, with the privacy and security considerations, that's something we're going to continue to keep on top of. Some of the trade-offs on some of the more public models are that they play a little looser with some of those things. Just knowing that some of the trade-off is that you're giving information so that they can continue to train their models, and so they can continue to learn how to better create those. We're definitely more sensitive to that, and where we're trying to make that more more private, more secure, and keeping your data safe. So that's what Spark is. Now let's jump into what it does, right? So really, chat is the main thing that really enables you to perform within these tools. And so chat is the main way to interact with the large language model. Benefit to this is that it is using natural language. Now, some people are going way down on this concept called prompt engineering, and basically it's sort of like creating a quote unquote natural language, almost programming language within the chats. And the truth is, you'll get better and better results the more you know about prompt engineering. We're trying to do what we can to make that to make this as accessible as possible. And so some of the tools and features you'll see, we're sort of injecting and infusing some of the methods that you use in prompt engineering, so that you don't have to learn all of those skills. So really, the key is, using natural language. If it's a question or a prompt that you want to give to the chat, generally what I say is just start with just getting out what's in your head. If you need to, often I'll use examples from Excel. I'm not an Excel wizard. And so I say, in Excel, I need to do this, this, and this. Often I don't even know what I'm asking it to do, but just, kind of putting out there what's in my head, and it figures out what I'm trying to do, and it gives me the proper formula or method for doing that. The other thing is it's conversational. So definitely chat with it, right? So don't just stop at your first prompt or your first question. Refine that. You can follow up. You can ask it for more information. You can kind of steer it in different directions. And I'll show you some examples here in a moment. We have prompt ideas for inspiration. So if you are coming here the first time, or you're reasonably new and you just don't know exactly what to use this for, we've got some prompt ideas for you, and I'll show you those. The other thing here is sharing chat. So as you're having a chat with the AI, with Spark, you may want to share that with somebody to have them either review it or to take a look at it, and they can continue that chat as well. So let's dive in and take a look at all of that. So this is Spark. You can see I've in my account here, I've had several chats this week. The main thing we're going to look at is this chat window right here. This is sort of the main window that allows you to interact with the large language model. Now, I mentioned you come in here for the first time, you see the empty box and you go, okay, what do I use this for? So down here at the bottom, you can click Browse Prompts, and you can click over into the Prompt Ideas tab. This will give you some sense of what kinds of things you can use this for. Now, these are very simple prompts. I mentioned prompt engineering. These are not heavily complex prompts, where we're asking it to do a lot. We're just really trying to give you some ideas for how you might be able to use this. You can see here on the left, we've got some different categories: accounting and tax information requests, business operations and management. A lot of this at this stage is searching for information. Basically it's a better, quote unquote, better Google. A lot of people have said that they're replacing Google with this, because you can get information much more quickly. It generates an answer as opposed to providing you with a lot of resources and links that you have to go find the answer. So that's one difference between this and something like a search engine like Google. So here's some examples. Provide a simple explanation of the Section 179 deduction. I'm just going to go ahead and use that, and then we'll go ahead and ask it. And you can see that it just starts giving us an answer right there. It's going to say the Section 179 deduction is a tax provision that allows businesses to immediately deduct, yada, 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 right? So it's giving us the explanation, and it's telling us, I mentioned that knowledge cutoff. Typically, though not always, it is, what I would say is quote unquote self-aware of its knowledge cutoff. So it's going to say, as of my recent update, sort of that kind of language. And so in this case, for the tax year 2023, maximum deduction is, now, and it even says tax laws are subject to change. And, this is based on my current understanding as of the knowledge cutoff date. It is giving me a resource here. And so just to illustrate the conversational nature of this, I'm going to go here and say, provide links to references. So now if I wanted to go validate or verify that information, now I can click straight into to links which are relevant for that. Now, because this is generative, sometimes, and it is, time sensitive kinds of things, sometimes you do run into dead links and things like that. But typically this at least gives you something directionally accurate that you can go to Google if the link doesn't work, and then know exactly what you're looking for. So if I needed to say I wanted to send this to somebody, I can just come up here, I can click share, I can create that link. I'm going to go and copy it. And if I send that over to somebody, just open a new tab here. If I send that over to somebody, they click into it, this is what they're going to see, right? So they see, oh, this is the chat that he's just had, and here's the links. Let's say I thought this was great, right? This is great. I like the information. I need to actually send this on to somebody. I can continue the chat. It's going to give me my own version of the chat. that person will have a completely separate instance of the chat. So if I ask another question here, it's not going to show up in the other chat that it came from. So I'm going to say, write an email I can send to my client. Simplest explanation. So now I can have it write the email. Again, just talking about refining these chats and having it do more. So it's going to go ahead and write that. I could copy and paste that over into my, into Outlook or wherever I send my emails from. So while that's doing that, I want to talk about the next thing that we have here, which is working with assistants. So I kind of overlooked that. You may have seen that in the chat, in that main chat window. So assistants are sort of our first way of giving you a little bit of that prompt engineering without having to learn prompt engineering. So typically there's different methods for prompt engineering. A lot of the times what you'll hear is the key is setting the context. So in this case, you're sort of saying you are a, how do you, we're telling it how to behave. So you are a blank, you're an expert in these kinds of things, and we're going to ask you these kinds of questions or perform these kinds of tasks, right? So that's what working with assistants is. You'll notice all these images actually were created using Spark just by typing in create an image of ... give its description. So I asked it for a representation of my, my professional services contact. So it's given me, doctors and business folks, and also a couple of chefs in there, and a chef doctor, it looks like. So so it's fun. It's fun stuff. Not always, the most accurate, especially when it comes to the images. But typically, if you work with it, I put this one up there because it was kind of fun. Typically, if you work with it, you can refine and you can get some pretty good results out of it. So the idea behind assistants is we're telling it how it's going to behave. It allows you to get more of your chat and allows you to customize your response. So a minute ago, I asked, for it to give me a link. If I wanted to, I could put in our assistant, give me links and citations for all of your sources, for anything that you're referencing, and it would do that in every chat. So within Spark, we've given a few to start with. So we have a firm owner. You're going to see a bunch scroll through here that are in my account here. We've got a firm owner, client relations, HR, and marketing. And you can create your own, right? So I'm going to make my own. I'm going to say, let's do a estate attorney. And this generate button, what this allows you to do is to get sort of a 80% of the way there, maybe even 100% of the way there, right? Depending on how specific you want to go here. And you can kind of see here while it's loading, this is just going to give us typical roles and responsibilities, skill sets, expertise, those kinds of things. So you can see as an estate attorney, here's the roles and responsibilities, the expertise. I can modify this. I can add to it, if I want. Down here, I could say, as we mentioned before, provide links to references. And then I might also want to say format with bold and bullets for readability, right? I may just want to tell it, give me something that's a little more readable, formatted a bit more appropriate. So then I can use that assistant. I'm not going to because I have a ton of assistants already. So you can use that assistant, and you could ask it a question about any estate planning. Or you can go back and, once you've saved these, you can go back and pull anything you want. So that is an assistant. You can also share your assistants. So if you're an admin on your account, you can share it with the whole team, make the assistant available for the whole team. If you're not an admin on your account, you can come in here and share it with specific people. So you could share it with another user within your firm. We're going to keep moving. So the next thing we've got here is Sparks. And so again, in the theme of prompt engineering, Sparks are a way that we are creating sort of purpose-built, task-focused prompts that run sort of when you hit this Spark It button, it's going to run a prompt that is more robust than what you might do just by going to chat. And they are designed to accomplish a specific task. So let's just show you an example here. So Sparks is where I've come, and we're going to continue building these. If you have ideas, feel free to suggest a Spark. We've added a handful so far based on people's suggestions. Relevant at the moment, responding to tax notices. Maybe these start coming more frequently after tax season. Responding to tax notices, categorizing and describing transactions, create a blog or a social post, creating your bio, right? These are things where, depending on what the spark is, it's going to likely walk you through a couple of different steps, or it's going to have just a different context in mind for the question that's being asked. So if I tell it to respond to tax notice here, the first thing it's going to do is say, you know, choose how you want to work through the process. You can either describe the situation as completely as possible, or you can provide the IRS notice number or state tax notice. So let's just go off the top of my head. I'm not going to work all the way through this, but you can just kind of see what it does here. So I said, I've got a CP 2000. It's going to make sure that we're in the right ballpark here. So brief summary of the notice. It says it's often referred to as an under reporter inquiry. And so then it's going to ask me a couple questions. Do you agree with or not agree with the findings in the notice? And then it'll just kind of work us through the process from there based on the answers to our questions. So again, those are Sparks. These are task oriented, and these are super helpful to get you a little bit further faster. All right, the last of the kind of primary features we're going to cover off on here is the content library. And so the idea behind the content library is to solve for a couple of issues. The biggest one being the knowledge cutoff that we spoke about, right? So knowledge cutoff is April 2023 currently. So anything past that date is not going to be in the model. So this is a way for us to say, you know what, we've got here's some documents or some source material that we want to load into a content library, into a collection, and then we want to ask questions about those things so that we know that the answers are coming from those documents. So this is a way to bring your own content and ensure that those answers are coming from your sources. So if I go into the content library, you can see here I've got a couple of examples. I've got some onboarding calls that I've done. So these are call transcripts. The Lewis Co. employee handbook, right? So Lewis Co. has a bunch of HR documents. You can throw those up into a collection, and now people could ask. You could share that. We'll be able to share that with our teams. Currently can't share that with your team, but in the future we'll be able to share that across the team, and you'll be able to ask questions of those documents. IRS publication 15, right? So I've grabbed the IRS pubs and thrown those in there, and now I can ask questions, and I know that the answers are coming specifically from these documents. In order to add a resource, you can come up here, you can click add resource. If it's got a publicly accessible URL, not behind a login or anything like that, typically you can just paste it in here and it'll fetch the content from that page. You can give it a title, the source, call it, what you will, and you can search by those sources later. So I can show you what that looks like. So I've got irs.gov. Now I can search and see the documents that came from IRS. The other thing you can do is you can just copy and paste. So if you've got another document in a PDF or something like that, you can just copy that information out and paste it into the content here. And that's another way of adding documents. We're going to continue building on this functionality. So you'll be able to eventually upload PDFs and potentially other documents that can also be used in a content library. Once you have this information and you say, okay, I want these 4 documents, I can click this, and then I can say, you know what, go ahead and give me all these pages, select all pages in this source area. And I want to start a new conversation, right? So when I start a new conversation, then it's going to go through and index all the information. And then that's basically what's already been done over here. And then I can ask questions of that. So employee documents, IRS stuff, blog articles, things like that, you can create a collection and then you can ask it those questions. All right, so I do want to show you some training materials and resources. So within the platform, we do have some how-to videos, updates, frequently asked questions, and some additional things that we will continue adding into this. So in order to get there, you can go to community. You can click community, and that'll take you right over into our page where you can see some of the resources we've got. I mentioned earlier an implementation guide that'll allow you to see an AI policy, example AI policies, and then sort of how we might walk through implementing and encouraging adoption within your firm. Some getting started information, just sort of some quick overviews on if you're new, here's some additional resources for how to just get started with Spark. The basics is a video library. We've got Spark updates where we post updates to the platform, FAQs, events. We've got training sessions scheduled coming up, community forums. So we just launched these. So questions and advice, Spark success, and sharing resources, right? So this is intended to be certainly to help you get started with Spark and to answer questions and learn new things. But as it relates to other AI tools, and products, feel free to chat about those here, right? This is supposed to be a resource for really encouraging the adoption of AI across the board within your firm. And so that is what that's all about. This AI champions, we're trying to get a person from each firm. So if that's something that you're interested in, uh, and you are sort of the AI either volunteering or being told that you're responsible for adoption of AI within your firm, let us know and we'll invite you into the AI champions. And that's a community specifically for those folks. So this is a great place to get familiar with. We'll continue adding things, content and other videos, etc., in there for you all to see. That is what we've got. Keep an eye on the events page for additional events coming up and additional videos and content. So thank you so much, and look forward to seeing what you all create in here.